Hello and welcome everyone to the Pascal Dennis Music Podcast. I'm here with Pascal Dennis and David Logan. Hi guys.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Today we want to talk about again two songs, and those songs are Rattlesnake Road and Mr. Rico's Having Fun. Let's talk first about Rattlesnake Road. Pascal, could you just briefly explain what the song is about?
Rattlesnake Road is about death and rebirth. It's about surviving terrible betrayal and coming out of it. It's a blues, but as I said earlier in our podcasts, we try to use old forms and spring into the future. So it's a blues, but it's informed by Dante's Inferno, a German romantic poetry, specifically Rilke, and the ancient Greek myth of the river of death and paying the boatman to cross it so you can see your parents or your friends or someone great. In my case, it's Hank Williams. So that's what it's all about.
Perfect. We will get into those details. But first, David, could you play us some of the song?
Yeah, sure. Well, here we go.
Nobody like rattlesnakes, nobody like eels. The moment I saw you, I fell head over heels. I was having ice cream up on the Ferris wheel. Trees all around, full of cockatoos. One day you're on the bottom and life just sucks. Next you're on stage in a tail and tux. We got bats in a barn, frogs in a pool. Daddy's from Texas, Ma Istanbul. Your daddy's a tout, give me his card. Was that him playing with matches at the lumber yard? Monte Cristo got life on a barren reef. To laugh from the belly, leading to grief. A rattlesnake road in blistering heat. Desert all around, prospect bleak. A prisoner of fortune like poor Jimmy Dean. Then I got 3 wishes and a gold trampoline.
There we go. It's always hard to stop the song in the middle, but we just have to, you know?
Way to go,
We
Crazy
d-
Angels Band. Wow.
Yes. We don't want to give away the whole song. Gotta give the listeners a reason to check out the full thing, right?
Just a key theme came out there. The Count of Monte Cristo is one of the great revenge stories of all time, and it's about a young man who's horribly betrayed by his best friends and his lover, and is condemned to a living death on this terrible, terrible prison island, the Chateau d'If. He dies and comes back to life, and he's reborn, if you will, as this mysterious Count of Monte Cristo, and he wreaks a terrible revenge on his enemies. But in the process of dying, he learns the mysteries of the world. One of his fellow prisoners is one of the great scholars of the day, and takes him under his wing. So Monte Cristo got life on that barren reef. To laugh from the belly, you've got to lean into grief. So it's the contrast. In death, there is life, right? We talked in earlier podcasts about the tarot card for death, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because if you look at it carefully, the great artists, I have the Waite tarot card deck. This wonderful artist in the Victorian England, Catherine Waite, drew these magnificent images, and the death card looks barren, but if you look really carefully, it's got these tiny little green sprouts. So in death, there is life, and vice versa, right? And the next song, Mr. Rico, is about the other side of the spectrum, but in that, there's also death. So these are all themes, and that mysterious, murky, psychological feeling is what we tried to capture and what David created so wonderfully. in this song. So I love it every time I hear it.
Pascal, you're always inspired by classical literature, and I wanted to ask, is there something in specific that inspired you in this song?
Yeah, I grew up listening to the myths of Homer. So the Odyssey and the Iliad, and one of the great stories in the Odyssey, which is the story of the great hero Odysseus, who has been cursed by the gods to wander the seas for 10 years, not allowed to go home to his family. And among his many adventures is he goes down into the underworld and he pays the boatman Charon to cross the river of death because he wants to see his old comrades, Achilles and other great heroes. And so I'm deeply affected by the myths of Homer and the Odyssey and the Iliad. And related to that, of course, is Dante. You know, you're a fellow Italian, and this descent into the seventh circle of hell. And Dante is transformed by that, just like Odysseus is transformed by that. David and I have both had that experience of death in life, if you will, and through intense betrayal. It's shocking, unexpected, horrifying betrayal. And you come out of that, if you're lucky, reborn. So these are all themes that contribute to it. So again, we take the forms of the past, wonderful blues, traditional form, and we mix all these other things into it to hopefully create something new.
Certainly, yes. And the struggle and the roughness is also represented in Pascal's grit in his singing voice, but also in the arrangement. So, David, I wanted to ask you, how did you and the band create the atmosphere of this song?
I'm always about rhythm, you know, because my first instrument is drums, and so yeah, it usually begins with rhythm. But Rattlesnake Road, you know, as we've discussed, you know, the rattlesnake sheds its skin, which is, you know, in order for it to have a new life, and it has to get rid of its old skin. And this theme about resilience and about betrayal, you know, something that Pascal and I have both experienced. I experienced it here in Rome, which is why they say if you conquer Rome, you conquer the world. So I feel like Julius Caesar sometimes. So anyway. So it begins with rhythm. It begins with the lyrics. It begins with the metaphor. And, you know, I mean, it's a little bit gimmicky, but, you know, we also, I pulled up the arrangement so we could also reference, you know, we had some fun with some, you know, rattlesnakes and rattles and just, you know, and this has gone on with Pascal and I forever, you know, where I'll literally mimic sounds. But, you know, it begins, let's see here. I'm just looking around here. So yeah, the keyboardist, his name is Roberto Ladanza. I always mispronounce it. Anyway, so it begins with him with this iconic lick. Now, nobody wrote that. Nobody wrote that. It's all about your interpretation of what already exists. And this also goes back to Pascal's point that we try to take what's old and then, you know, put a new spin on it. So, you know, I can't take much credit on this, you know, I really can't. I mean, for the rhythmic structure, sure. And certainly for, you know, like the mixing and the mastering and well, okay, fine. There's other things too. All right. All right.
Come on.
But then stop it. And then of course we have, you know, Giulio Rosatelli, and you know we basically put down 3 layers of guitars. So actually 4. There's 4 layers of guitars. So you know we have this you know, just regular acoustic, and that's just like, again, nobody wrote that, but he feels it. Now that's one of the guitars. Then we have this, oops. this electric steel. And again, these are all existing forms, but he gets it. And the ultimate evidence that he gets it is this guitar part. You know, and that's just like, I'm sorry, but, you know, we told the story of this before where, you know, Pascal and I are like, where the hell does this kid from Sardinia in Italy learn how to play the blues? And so, of course, I asked Giulio one day, I was like, man, I mean that. And he got this tone, this cigar box guitar tone, right? And so I said, like, where did you learn how to play like that? I mean, you, and I said, Pascal and I were talking about it. Man, you've got the blues in your soul. You must have like filtered like Willie Dixon and Robert Johnson and Son House and, you know, these iconic blues people. You must have just, you know, he's like, I just play what I think it sounds right. Yeah. So, you know, again, like I, you know, I mean, I'm a drummer. And so, you know, I mean, I suppose, you know, the brushwork, you know, again, you know, it's all stuff that nobody really wrote, but once it all meshes in there together, something beautiful happens. And then, of course, you know, the mixing, getting Pascal's vocal tone, you know, to basically get the best light on his voice.
We got bats in the barn, frogs in a pool.
So just, you hear there's just that little bit of echo, a little bit of reverb, you know, not too much. I put a little stereo widening on the voice to just kind of get it to pop out of the mix a little better. And that's pretty much it, man. It's not rocket science. So yeah, it's the band. It's Roberto and Giulio and we lay down, it starts off with the Wurlitzer, but we also put a clavinet. And, you know, when we're talking about these instruments here, let me just get the clavinet here. Hold on, where are we? We're here. If you listen to that, you got the pedal noise. You got all kinds of crap in there. He's barely hanging on for dear life. No? And then, of course, the Wurlitzer. And the thing is, these are not MIDI instruments. He owns these instruments in his studio. This is a real Wurlitzer. This is a real clavinet. And so, you know, when we pull musicians together, you know, we want the best, you know, because everybody has a MIDI computer generated clavinet, but a real clavinet, a real Wurlitzer, a real accordion. And we try to do everything live, you know. Whenever I get a chance, I like to do my brushwork with the drums. But it's all, you know, this is, I mean, none of this can happen if Pascal doesn't write the song. Like the way, when he goes to the chorus, like you don't see that one. You don't see that one coming.
Nobody like rattlesnakes, body like eels. The moment I saw you, I fell head over heels. I was having ice cream up on the Ferris wheel. Trees all around, full of cockatoos. One day you're on the bottom and her life just sucks. Next you're on stage in a tail and tie.